Persona. You've heard of it, right? Popular games about Japanese teens dealing with supernatural BS? Now imagine if Persona had a lesser-known dad, and he was the devil.
A well-known poet once said, "April is the cruelest month." Have you any inclination as to why?
Our story begins in a subway station in Tokyo. You play as a normal Japanese teenager who's on the way to meet your two friends and visit your teacher in the hospital. On the way, you hear all these weird rumors about the hospital. People say it's connected to the occult. Spooky. The game does a really good job of building tension even before you enter the hospital. It seems like a really normal social thing, but the closer you get to the hospital, the more people talk about it and the nearby park, you start feeling like, okay, there's some weird stuff going on here. But anyway, so you enter the hospital, and things take a turn for the eerie. You walk into the place only to find that it's deserted. There's no one here. No nurses, no doctors, no patients, no janitors, no one. Now, this is a thing that has to do a lot with the technical limitations of the PS2. This game originally did come out for the PS2 after all, and they couldn't exactly have like a bunch of NPCs like just wandering about filling space. So instead, they decided to go the other way in the extreme, to get rid of everyone, and to do it for the sake of creating a specific tone and a specific vibe. You meet your two friends soon after, and you still can't find your teacher or anybody else. A series of events basically leads you to the basement, where you find Vegeta staring at a magical oil drum. Vegeta talks to you about the month of April for some reason, and then decides to kill you, because, yeah, okay, sure, I guess. Luckily, your teacher steps in and saves you. She talks Vegeta down and asks you to join her on the roof, which you totally do, because, honestly, you don't really have any other options. You both meet, and you have a vague chat, and then this happens. What you just saw is an event called the Conception, but make no mistake, that was the end of the world. Most JRPGs are about saving the world, to make sure that the end of the world does not happen, but not this one. Nocturne begins at the end of the world. All but a literal handful of humans are all dead. Remember that hospital you were in? Surprise, it is now full of demons. Also surprise, a kid just dropped a weird bug thing into your first-person hole. You know, like your eye or your nose or your mouth or whatever it's supposed to be. And now, you're a half-demon with cool tattoos. Welcome to the apocalypse, Demi-Fiend.
Come to think of it, this is your first time seeing the new Tokyo, is it not? Allow me to tell you one thing, if you don't mind.
What kind of a story do you tell when the world has already been destroyed and all the people are gone? How about a story of remaking it? After the world ended, what was left became a temporary world in the shape of a sphere with a bright sun-like thing hanging out in the middle. This is called the Vortex World. You can think of it like it's pizza dough. It is like a temporary state between flour and a pizza. You know what I mean? And it can be made into any kind of pizza. You see, the Conception was the end of the world, but it was also the start of the process of creating the next one. The fake sun in the sky is basically like a reactor or an oven through which you can create the new pizza. I mean, the world. All it needs is a blueprint or an idea for what the new world should be like. And this blueprint has to come from a human. And in the game, this blueprint or ideal around which the new world will be based is called a reason. The game's story is overall an exploration of the different ideas or reasons that each surviving human comes up with, and a lot of their experiences in the Vortex world and their personalities before the conception actually end up shaping the kind of world that they want to create. Remember how you have a bug inside you and you're now half demon? This means you can't have your own reason. Sorry. But you can deny somebody their reason. Or support them if you like, I guess. And that's what the game is about. It is about you hearing these people out, seeing their perspectives, and deciding what the new world should be like by supporting or denying any of their perspectives. To say that this game has a lot going on is a massive understatement. This is a deep and thematic game with influences from and references to all kinds of mythology and legends. However, that being said, this is not a very character-driven story. This is not a story like the Persona games where it's about hanging out with your friends and having day-to-day experiences. This is basically a pure dungeon crawl, boss rush kind of game in a JRPG's skin, and it doesn't waste any time fleshing out its characters. Instead, it wants you to be more interested in their ideals, and these ideals are presented with as least bias as possible so you would really think about it, you know? So you wouldn't just focus on one ideal because it's your buddy what's-his-name, or the other one because it's your teacher what's-her-face. Overall, I'd say this game's story is a lot like a series of events that showcase a world and discuss ideas, and eventually it all kinda trickles together and comes together in the end in a really spectacular fashion. Personally, I do like this approach. I think that it feels like watching an anime series with a few short but interesting arcs. In fact, I might favorably compare this game to Netflix's Devilman Crybaby in some ways, although I do like Nocturne's story more personally. Oh hey, by the way, did you also know that this is a creature collecting game? Yeah, it's like Pokemon for goth kids and necromancers.
This is the Cathedral of Shadows. We hope that our secret art will be of help to you, Master of Demons.
One of the most fun things about the Shin Megami Tensei series is the fact that these creatures or demons, or personas if you're a Persona fan, they do recur in the different games. So you might end up playing a game that you didn't even know was connected to one of these Shin Megami Tensei games, and ooh, suddenly Jack Frost shows up, you know? And that's really great. And looking at Nocturne itself, it is, like most Shin Megami Tensei games, a game where you can recruit demons and have them fight for you. See, in this game there's only one quote-unquote real party member, and that's the Demi-Fiend. You, basically. And the rest of the slots in the party are filled by the various demons that you recruit and fuse along the way. Now, the demons in this game, I love them. And I hate them. So let's talk about why I hate them first, and then we can talk about why I love them. Let me just start off by saying that every single demon in this game is a freaking con artist. Demon negotiation is the way in which you recruit demons. You basically have to talk to them while you're doing combat and basically convince them to join you. And this process of convincing is a series of dialogue prompts, where you have stuff like the demons asking you for money, the demons asking you for a little bit of health, the demons asking you for a specific item, maybe a healing item, you know? And then they might also drop like some sort of vague philosophical question that you gotta answer while considering what kind of demon it is, so you gotta kinda give it an answer that it would like to hear. Does this sound complicated? Because it is. To this day, I have no idea how I succeeded in some of the negotiations that I did. I'm gonna call it pure luck. These demons, they're so greedy. They'll ask for money, and then they'll be like, oh, you think I can live on just this much? Give me some more. And then they'll ask for more, and more, and more. And you know, after all of that, they'll just say, oops, I can't join you, bye. And they'll just get out of there. And this has happened to me more than once. These damn demons can't be trusted, y'all. But hey, that's when they're against you. But when they're on your side, it's a whole other thing. So let's talk about that. As difficult as it might be sometimes to recruit demons, once you do recruit a few, and you fuse a few, and you face some of the tougher bosses and start fusing them, and you start playing around with the game mechanics a little bit more, you end up creating some truly horrendously powerful demons who will stick with you through thick and thin. Anyway, Another aspect of the demons that I really like is what they do for the story. I mentioned that there were limitations with the PlayStation that resulted in there not being NPCs just walking around on the streets. So to replace this, the developers basically threw in a few friendly demons with cool dialogue. And I really like this. Because when you play the Persona games, which is kind of where I got my start with all of this, you know these creatures as cool mythological references, and sometimes maybe a few of them might have dialogue, and if you have Demon Negotiation or Persona Negotiation, perhaps they might speak a little bit more, but overall, I feel like they don't really have a strong show of personality. But here, all of those demons are brimming with personality. You've got your Onis, you've got your Shisa, you've got your, like, Pixie at the start of the game. Like, they all talk, and they all have interesting NPC dialogue, at least for me, and I really like that. It made it feel like these characters had motivations, drives, they fit into a world. They were not just some monsters that I used to fight until I could discard them for stronger monsters. And I ended up really caring about a few of them, which was really nice. And I appreciate that some of the really good bosses in the game have personalities all onto themselves, where they would taunt you before they started fighting you. And it really added this kind of unique flair to each one of them. They had personalities, they had goals, they had thoughts, opinions, you know? They even had unique ways of taunting you, which I really appreciated. Overall, great monster catching game. Highly recommended to people who like catching monsters. Seriously.
It is reassuring to see you did nothing to embarrass my little master. For instance, dying.
The battle system in this game is called the press turn system, and it is a work of mechanical beauty. Let's talk a little bit about it. The press turn system basically boils down to how long you can make your turn last. See, when you look at the corner of the screen in any battle, the right hand corner up there, you would see that there are a few icons of these little face thingies. That represents how many turns your party has, and because you have 4 members, you have 4 turns. If you are able to hit an enemy weakness, or if you're able to score a critical hit, instead of spending 1 turn to do 1 move, you end up spending half turns. So what this means is that you potentially have 8 things you can do before the enemy even gets a chance to react. All you gotta do is be smart about enemy weaknesses, be smart about critical hits, be smart about the tactics that you use, you know? And the other side of it is, if you miss, you lose 2 press turns. And at the same time, if the enemy repels, drains, or nullifies your attack, you lose all of them. And the best part is, the same thing applies to enemies. Every enemy. Even the bosses. So knowing this system and being able to take advantage of it is key to enjoying this game. But once you get it, you'll start feeling like a damn genius as you start getting more and more press turns and just completely dominating bosses who used to stomp all over your face, and it feels amazing. To show you what I mean, I'm gonna highlight one of the early bosses, and this is the extent to which even the footage of this game will be spoiled, so no worries there. Anything beyond this is up for you to discover. The boss I want to talk about is called Matador. He is what I consider to be a gatekeeper boss. He exists in this game to test new players and to teach you a very important aspect of the combat system in Nocturne by being a very tough wall in your way. And this guy will destroy you if you're not prepared. And this guy will keep doing it until you wise up and learn what it is that he's trying to teach you. So let's talk about it. Matador has a few moves. One of the first things he does in almost every battle is to raise his own accuracy and evasion. So what happens is, when he attacks, he almost never misses. But at the same time, when you attack, you miss like crazy. What this means is that the first time player is gonna miss a whole lot and not gonna be able to do a lot of damage to Matador, while he's gonna dance all around you and just poke you full of holes. The next thing that he does is he uses wind magic. And at this point, if you haven't been paying attention to elemental strengths and weaknesses, this thing is gonna hit you hard. The next important thing about Matador is that he does not have any elemental weaknesses. So what that means is that you as the player need to figure out a way to deal with someone with no elemental weaknesses who buffs up their own stats and uses a very specific kind of magic. As you can see, I'm kind of approaching this whole thing like it's a puzzle. And honestly, that's what a lot of the bosses in this game feel like, and that's something I really love about this game. But see, a lot of the bosses come with their own specific gimmicks. You need to know, by facing them and taking on their movesets and seeing what sort of things that they do, how best to counteract them. And this process of trial and error, learning how to figure out the puzzles that the bosses represent and finding ways to completely dominate over them by taking advantage of the press turn system is just an awesome feeling. In the case of Matador, this is the game telling you, hey, buffs and debuffs exist, use them. This is the game telling you resistances, nullifications, and drain exists. Think about it. And brilliantly, Matador, in one boss fight, is able to teach you all of these things so that by the time you're done with them, you'll be ready to take on pretty much any boss in the game. All you need, like Batman, is prep time.
I am sure you are already aware, but many formidable demons lurk in this dark land.
What do you think the end of the world sounds like? This is probably the question that the creators of this game asked themselves when they were developing it. And I gotta say that the answers that they found were pretty spectacular. The soundtrack of Nocturne features various tracks from a lot of different genres, ranging from ambient to jazz to funk to orchestral to what sounds like pipe organ music, I don't know. There's a lot going on here. Rock and metal, they're here too. And it all comes together to make some really, really beautiful, really, really memorable themes. In fact, this game actually has a meme song. Do you guys know about it? It's this one. Yeah, people love that song. I love that song. It's great. Another thing I want to highlight about the OST of this game is the strange, distorted vocals, if you can even call it that. According to a little research that I did, these vocals were generated by a speak-to-text program from an old Mac OS, and they sound super distorted and super weird, and honestly, I'm here for it. That being said, there is something I really don't like about this soundtrack, and that is audio quality. I'll be talking a little bit more about this soon, but for now let me just say that there were some audio issues with the original Nocturne game where the developers basically had to compress their music to fit it into the PS2 disc when it first came out. But that was then, and this is 2021, and yet the remaster still has that compressed, crushed audio. These tracks are awesome, but their sound quality really, really isn't. And I don't know whether they didn't have the time or the budget or whatever to re-record these tracks, but the game does suffer because of it.
Wait, aren't you that kid I met at the park? What in God's name happened to you?
That's a lot of stuff I liked about this game. Now let's talk a little bit about what I didn't like. And I'll be talking about both Nocturne as a game and about the state of the remaster as well. So let's just go through them one by one. The first thing that I want anybody who wants to try this game to know is that this is a game that was originally released in 2003, later got a release to the Western audience in 2004. This is an old game. It does not have the benefit of hindsight to improve the JRPG formula the way that games that came out later do. There are some really player-unfriendly things in here. There are things that could definitely use like a quality of life boost, but this is an old game, and it just doesn't have those things. Like the encounter rate, for instance. The ungodly encounter rate. Then there's the matter of backtracking. You gotta do a lot of it sometimes. I mean, yeah, there is fast travel, but you do need to explore on foot a lot, and there is no walk or run speed. There's just the speed at which the Demi-Fiend casually jogs through the apocalypse, and that's just what it is. All of that being as it is, it still makes for an incredibly compelling, incredibly satisfying game to play. but anybody going into this game needs to understand that this is a game from another time, and they need to be a little bit more flexible about accepting the game on its own terms. But that's the original Nocturne. The remaster, what I have to say about it is not a lot of good, to be honest with you. I think that looking at the quality of remasters that have come out for different games over time, that this is what I would call a bare bones remaster. What this remaster gives you is the ability to play an exceptionally good, if a little dated, JRPG on modern consoles. That's what it gives you. That is literally all it gives you. It does not make your life easy in any significant way. Yeah, sure, it does have a merciful difficulty DLC, which technically does make your life easier, but like, the mechanics of Nocturne is still the same, you know? So you still have those hurdles. The way that Nocturne tutorializes its mechanics is still the same, so you still need to figure that out too. So, the remaster, all it did, in my opinion, is just make the games available to us, you know? Make it so that it fits like our screens in a way that doesn't look super fugly. But even then, some of the cutscenes have literally the bare bones amount of work done to make it fit the screen. Some of them are even in boxes. It's a little underwhelming in that regard. The graphics also are pretty dated, except the characters at least do look really good still, even if the backgrounds and the textures are a little bit old. And I'm pointing all of this out not to say that this game is bad. I think it's an excellent game. I would recommend it to any person who's interested in it. I just need people to understand that they gotta accept this game on its terms. It is not flexible and it's not playing around. And if you accept it on its terms, you'll have a great time. If you don't, you will suffer like it's 2004.
But even if we did keep this old world alive, it would eventually lose all its power. The world must first die, for it to be born again.
All in all, my experience with Shin Megami Tensei III Nocturne was very positive. I really enjoyed the game. I really liked exploring the mechanics, the world, the lore, the various characters' reasons, thinking about what would be the best option for the new world. I got one of the endings, and I'm definitely planning to replay the game to get some of the other endings, and I do hear that there is a little bit of value for New Game Plus as well. And this version that you'll be getting your hands on does have a really, really interesting optional dungeon. Some people think that it is a labyrinthine hell full of some of the toughest puzzles that exist in the game, and they're right. And other people, like myself, think that it's just a really interesting area to explore, because it is so oppressive. I don't know, I just really like doing it. Maybe I'm just a glutton for punishment at this point. But overall, this is an excellent game. But it is not a game for everyone. It is a pretty niche title, and if you like JRPGs, this is a must-play. If you're a Persona fan, it's time for you to try something Persona adjacent. Look, it's even got Jack Frost, okay? Just give it a try. You might enjoy it. But for the average casual gamer, unless you're willing to put up with a game that will sometimes just kick your butt out of nowhere, full of demons that are con artists, a world that is as desolate as it is beautiful, unless you're ready for all of that, this one might not be for you. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know? Different games appeal to different people, and I think that this is a niche JRPG that deserves more love, especially now that they've made it available in modern consoles. This is considered to be a classic game, one of the best SMT games according to a lot of fans. And now that it's so easy to get a hold of, you should play it. You should really play it.